Let me warn you before we begin. Watching this video can make you a dangerous person. You still have time to turn it off and live your average life. But if you are ready to change and become a dangerous person, keep watching till the end, because this can change your life forever.
Picture this. A man sits quietly in the corner of a coffee shop. Around him, the place is buzzing. People are glued to their screens, endlessly scrolling, tapping, liking, reacting, trying to feel seen, to feel something. Couples are snapping selfies, carefully curating their perfect moments. Groups are gossiping, trying to impress each other with stories or complaints. Even the people sitting alone aren't really alone. They're swiping on dating apps, looking for someone, anyone, to fill the silence. But this one guy, he's not doing any of that. He's sitting there with his earbuds in, listening to a deep, slow-burning audiobook on philosophy. No flashy music, no drama, just quiet thoughts. His phone is face down, his coffee's getting cold, and he's totally okay with that. He's not lonely, he's not bored, he's not looking for attention. He's just still. And in that stillness, something unsettling happens, not to him, to everyone else. He becomes the most dangerous person in the room. Why is that? Why is someone who's comfortable just being with himself, someone who doesn't need likes or validation or constant chatter? Why does that shake people up? Because here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to admit. Our society thrives on your insecurity. It profits from your fear of being alone. Let me break it down for you. Every ad you see, every dating app, every self-help influencer, even the motivational posters in your gym, all of it whispers the same message. You're not enough. Not yet. You need someone. You need more followers, more attention, more love, more connection. Alone, that's dangerous. That's failure. But what if it's all a lie? What if that man sitting alone with his own thoughts, totally okay with himself? What if he is the real threat? Not because he's weird, but because he's free. The world tells you that happiness is out there. Swipe for it, buy it, date it, build a brand around it. But the guy who's found it in here, in his own mind, in his own peace, he doesn't need what they're selling, and that makes him impossible to control. Think about it. A man who's not seeking attention doesn't care what you think. A man who isn't desperate for love won't settle for toxicity. A man who's not afraid to be alone won't cling to people who drain him. And society? It doesn't know what to do with someone like that. There's power in solitude, not loneliness. Solitude. Let me tell you about two men who understood this power, centuries apart, but connected by this exact truth. First, Marcus Aurelius. He was basically the emperor of the world. He could command armies, reshape nations. And yet, in the quiet hours of the night, he didn't throw parties or seek applause. He wrote to himself, in a journal, with thoughts like, "All cruelty springs from weakness." Here was a man who ruled everything, yet still questioned his own ego, still searched for inner peace rather than public praise. Now, fast forward to Friedrich Nietzsche. This guy challenged the very foundation of Western thought. He once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Nietzsche believed that the man who can walk alone, not because he has to, but because he chooses to, is not broken. He's becoming. He's evolving into something society hasn't prepared for, an independent thinker. Solitude isn't weakness, it's training. It's where real confidence is born, not the loud, flashy kind, the quiet, solid kind. The kind you feel when you know you don't need anyone, even if you want them. And that's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you dangerous. So, the next time you're alone, really alone, don't panic. Don't rush to fill the silence. Sit in it. Breathe in it. Because in a world that constantly screams, "You are not enough," choosing to be okay with yourself might just be the most rebellious and powerful thing you can do. Nietzsche, the philosopher who lost his mind but whose ideas outlived entire empires, once said, "The individual has always had to struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe." He wasn't exaggerating. Both Nietzsche and Marcus Aurelius uncovered something society works very hard to suppress, that the person who can be alone with their own thoughts is the person who learns how to think for themselves. And that's one of the most dangerous things a human being can do. Let's get real for a second. What's actually going on inside the mind of someone who chooses solitude over social validation? First, they've broken the addiction to approval. While most people are caught in a loop of likes, shares, and comments, chasing tiny dopamine hits, this person's self-worth doesn't come from a screen. They've found something far more powerful, a sense of dignity that isn't for sale. Second, they've learned how to sit with discomfort. Most people can't handle silence. 5 quiet minutes and they're reaching for their phone, opening apps they don't even like. Why? Because in silence, the mask comes off. You're left with your thoughts. And most people, they're afraid of what they'll hear. But the dangerous loner, they've had the hard conversations with themselves. They've faced the anxiety, the regret, the insecurity, and they didn't run. They stayed, they listened, and they grew stronger because of it. Third, they can't be manipulated. This is a big one. If you don't need someone's approval, they can't use it to control you. You're not afraid of being rejected. You're not chasing popularity. You're not easy to sway with peer pressure or public opinion. Marcus Aurelius had a practice that most people today would find strange, even uncomfortable. Each night he'd reflect, not just on what he did, but why he did it. He asked himself things like, what did I crave today that I didn't actually need? What did I fear that was outside my control? Where did I compromise who I am just to gain approval? This wasn't self-help fluff, it was discipline. He wasn't journaling for fun, he was training his mind like a warrior trains his body. He knew something deep. When you really know yourself, your motives, your fears, your desires, nobody else can use them against you. You stop falling for the games people play. You stop getting pulled into shallow drama. You see through manipulation, and you walk right past it. That kind of self-awareness, it makes you untouchable. Nietzsche didn't stop there. He pushed the idea even further. He believed that the truly dangerous person is the one who creates their own values, who questions everything society handed them. Because here's the truth. Most people never choose what they believe. Their worldview is inherited, handed down, programmed. They believe what their parents believed, what their friends believe, what their culture rewards. But the person who spends time alone eventually starts asking hard questions. Why do I believe this? Who does it benefit if I think this way? What if I built my beliefs from the ground up? And when that happens, you stop being predictable. You stop being easy to market to. You stop living someone else's script. Here's where we have to get brutally honest. Loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness is emptiness. It's the pain of feeling incomplete. It's a hunger for connection, for someone to fill the silence. Solitude, on the other hand, is fullness. It's being whole on your own. It's enjoying your own presence without needing to escape it. But society blurs the lines between the two. Why? Because lonely people make great consumers. They'll buy things to feel better. They'll chase trends to feel included. They'll follow the herd to avoid the pain. But someone who embraces solitude, they're not trying to fill a void. They don't have one. They're not buying distractions. They're eliminating them. They're not chasing status. They're choosing freedom. And that kind of person, they're dangerous, not to people, but to systems built on mindless conformity. After studying the lives and lessons of Marcus Aurelius and Nietzsche, I've found 4 powerful truths, pillars that define this kind of solitude. 1. Radical self-honesty. The truly dangerous loner has mastered something most people spend their whole lives avoiding: brutal honesty with themselves. They've stopped pretending. They've stopped making excuses. They've stopped hiding behind distractions, fake positivity, or spiritual bypassing. No more sugarcoating their insecurities. No more rewriting stories to protect their ego. No more lying to themselves just to feel good in the short term. Instead, they look in the mirror and really look. They confront the ugly parts. They examine the uncomfortable truths. They admit when they're wrong, when they're afraid, when they're acting out of pride or pain. They don't flinch when reality punches them in the gut. They welcome it, because they'd rather be in pain than live in illusion. And that kind of self-honesty, it becomes a superpower. It sharpens your inner vision. It's like cleaning the lens through which you see the world. You stop projecting. You stop blaming. You stop getting caught in other people's performances. You start seeing things clearly: people, situations, yourself. You recognize the subtle manipulation in someone's kindness. You notice the fear behind someone's arrogance. You pick up on patterns others are too distracted to see. You stop falling for appearances, for status, for charm, for pity traps. You see through the mask, and more importantly, you stop being easy to deceive, because once you've stopped lying to yourself, nobody else can lie to you and get away with it. See, most people aren't naive because they're stupid. They're naive because they haven't developed the courage to be honest with themselves. So, of course, they can't recognize dishonesty in others. But the dangerous loner? They've stared into the abyss of their own mind. They've admitted their darkest thoughts. They've felt the sting of their own flaws and survived it. That's what makes them powerful. They don't need to fake being good. They're just real. And in a world obsessed with image, that's the most dangerous thing you can be. 2. Inner independence. They've built something most people never even think to question. A moral code of their own, not one inherited, not one spoon-fed to them by religion, tradition, or family expectation. Not a set of rules designed to keep them obedient, small, and safe. They didn't just accept the script handed to them at birth. They threw the script out. They started from scratch. Not because they want to rebel, not because they're angry or defiant, but because they want to live in truth. This isn't about rebellion, it's about alignment. They ask the hard questions. What do I actually believe? What's right because it feels true, not because I was told it is? Who benefits from me believing what I believe? And when the answers didn't line up with what society expected, they didn't flinch, they didn't fold, they realigned. They chose reason over ritual, truth over tradition, integrity over image. They don't follow rules blindly, they follow principles. They don't bow to what's popular, they bow to what's right, even if no one else sees it, even if it costs them status, even if it makes them the villain in someone else's narrative. And that terrifies people. Because when someone can't be guilt-tripped, when they can't be shamed into obedience, when they won't chase approval like a starving dog chasing scraps, they become immune to the usual weapons of control. You can't manipulate them with disapproval. You can't threaten them with exile. You can't cancel them, because they were never performing in the first place. They're not trying to be liked. They're trying to be authentic. You can't herd them, because they don't fear being alone. You can't tame them, because they've stopped needing your acceptance to validate their existence. And so, they walk through the world, free, not reckless, not cruel, but unowned. They've found their compass. And once a person finds that, no system, no crowd, no tribe can pull them off course again. That's what makes inner independence so rare, so powerful, so dangerous. 3. Emotional self-sufficiency. They don't depend on anyone else to feel whole. Not a partner, not a friend, not a crowd, not a therapist they treat like a crutch. They've stopped outsourcing their peace. They've stopped placing the weight of their emotional stability on other people's shoulders. They've built that peace inside themselves, brick by brick, through storms, through heartbreaks, through nights where no one came to save them. They've learned to be their own anchor, to breathe through chaos, to sit with sadness without needing to escape it, to feel anger without being ruled by it, to feel joy that isn't performative or shared for social media clout. They know how to self-soothe without self-sabotaging. They don't numb themselves with distractions or drown themselves in noise. They've trained their nervous system like a warrior sharpens their blade, calm in the fire, centered in the storm. And here's the key. They're not looking for someone to complete them. They're already complete. They don't need someone to fix them or rescue them or mirror love back to them to believe they deserve it. They know they do, and that's dangerous. Because you can't manipulate a person who doesn't crave your affection. You can't threaten someone who doesn't need your approval. You can't control someone who isn't addicted to connection. They're not running from emptiness, because there is no emptiness. They are the fullness. They show up in relationships not out of desperation, but abundance. They give without needing to take. They love without losing themselves. They walk away when something threatens their peace, not because they're cold, but because they've worked too hard to earn that inner calm. That's why they're free. And freedom, real inner freedom, isn't loud. It's not flashy, it's quiet, it's steady, it's unshakable. And freedom is power. 4. Intellectual courage. They're willing to think thoughts most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Not because they're edgy, not because they enjoy controversy, but because they'd rather be uncomfortable than ignorant. They question the foundations, the stuff everyone else just accepts. The truths passed down like hand-me-down clothes, tattered, outdated, but worn anyway because no one wants to walk around naked in their own thinking. They challenge assumptions that feel sacred. They ask, who told me this? Why do I believe this? What if the opposite were true? They follow truth wherever it leads, even if it drags them through cognitive dissonance, through social backlash, through the death of their old identity. That's courage, not the kind that charges into battle, the kind that dares to question the battlefield itself, the kind that tears down its own beliefs and rebuilds them stronger, clearer, earned. And because of that, they're not easy to silence. They don't parrot opinions to fit in. They don't shrink their thoughts to stay liked. They don't fear being the odd one out, because they know most crowds are just scared people in disguise. They'll speak truths others choke on. They'll say what others won't, even if their voice shakes. Because the truth matters more than comfort, more than applause, more than belonging. They know the price of truth, and they pay it willingly. Because once you taste truth, there's no going back to sweet lies. They rattle the status quo, not to watch it fall, but to see what still stands when it's shaken. And here's the paradox. Their ideas might be unpopular, but over time, those are the ones that change the world. Not because they were loud, but because they were real. That's intellectual courage. That's why it's rare, and that's why it's dangerous. Let's be real. This path isn't easy. There's a cost to becoming independent in a world built on dependence. You'll be misunderstood. People will call you cold, arrogant, antisocial, because your self-sufficiency threatens their worldview. Some relationships will fade. People who relied on your weakness won't know what to do with your strength. You'll feel isolated, not lonely, but separate. Like you're living in a world where everyone's playing a game you've chosen to stop playing. And yes, the pressure to conform will be constant, subtle, insistent. Be more normal. Why are you so quiet? Don't you want to be part of this? But here's the truth. The price of conformity is even higher. You lose yourself. You lose your fire. You trade your soul for a sense of belonging. Why does this kind of person, calm, complete, and independent, scare people so much? Economically, because self-sufficient people don't consume as much. They don't buy happiness. They don't need the latest trend to feel alive, and that threatens industries built on insecurity. Socially, because they don't care about status. You can't control them with likes or titles. They don't play the hierarchy game, and that makes them unpredictable. Politically, because they can't be easily swayed. They think before they vote. They question both sides. They don't chant, they reflect. Psychologically, because their independence reflects what others are lacking. Their freedom makes others feel trapped. Their peace makes others confront their own chaos. So, how do you start walking this path? How do you become dangerous in the best possible way? You begin small. 10 quiet minutes a day. No phone, no noise. Just you and your thoughts. Get used to the silence. It's where the truth lives. Start journaling. Each night ask yourself, what did I chase today that I didn't actually need? What truth did I avoid? Where did I trade my values for approval? Question everything. Ask yourself, why do I believe this? Challenge ideas that feel automatic. Keep what holds up. Let go of what doesn't. Build your own moral compass. Decide for yourself what's good, what's worth fighting for, and what kind of person you want to be, without relying on the crowd. Find joy in your own company. Read, walk, think, create. Build a rich inner world so you're never bored or empty when you're alone. And most importantly, let go of the need to be seen. Stop chasing validation. You don't need the applause to know your worth. Here's the irony. The person who doesn't need anyone becomes magnetic to everyone. Why? Because confidence that doesn't beg for attention, that's rare. Peace that isn't performative, that's attractive. Strength that isn't loud, but undeniable, that draws people in. But here's the trick. You're not doing it to attract others. You're doing it because it's the right way to live. The connection that comes from that, that's just a bonus. When you're in a relationship out of choice, not desperation, it becomes healthier. Friendships are deeper when they're not built on fear of being alone. Work becomes more meaningful when you stop trying to impress and start trying to contribute. Your whole life sharpens when you stop outsourcing your worth. So here's the challenge. Be dangerous. Not by harming, but by thinking, by being unshakable, by being free. Be dangerous because you can't be bought, because you live by your own code, because you're whole without anyone's permission. The world needs more people like that, more people who don't need to fit in, who aren't afraid to stand alone, who can sit in silence and come out stronger. If this hit you like it hit me the first time I saw Through the Illusion, share it. You know someone who needs to hear this. And tell me in the comments, what's one belief you've carried that you never chose for yourself? Where are you still seeking validation instead of giving yourself respect? Because in a world addicted to approval, the most radical act is to stand alone. Stay dangerous.